So in this video, I'm going to shake the dust off of the Waves LoAir plugin and walk you through the features of this timeless and very relevant classic. I'll show you all the parameters, what they're doing, and how you can best apply them to your sound. So under the hood, what we have going on here is subharmonic synthesis, meaning it's a plugin that is generating a frequency an octave lower than the frequency that you select. So with the range knob, where this white line is, whatever frequency that's selected on, in this case it's 120, this plugin here is generating a frequency an octave below 120, which would be 60. So now we have a 60 hertz frequency generated, now prominent, standing loud and proud amongst all the other frequencies, ready to be boosted in a way that could not have been boosted before because it did not exist with the degree of intensity. It did not stand loud and proud and did not command attention. It just simply was wilting away in obscurity amongst all the other obscure, unheard frequencies in the lower end of these examples that I'm giving. Before giving these sound examples of what this plugin is doing, let's quickly go over these parameters here so that when we're done with this lesson, you can move forward with more confidence, knowing that you just don't know what this plugin can do and how it sounds, but you can use it and apply it for yourself. So these 5 knobs here are the ones that I'm going to be paying attention to today in this lesson. So you see that we have range, low air, low, direct, and output. The range knob is selecting the corner frequency of the high pass filter. That's filtering the signal of your sound source between 20 hertz and whatever you select with this white line of this knob right here up to 120 hertz. Now the low air knob is representing the frequency that has been synthesized, generated based off of what you selected as the corner frequency of the filter. So like I said, here we have selected 120 hertz so that we can generate a 60 hertz frequency. And this low air knob here is the volume adjustment, boosting or cutting of that generated frequency. The low knob represents the entire filtered section between 20 hertz and whatever frequency that you select. So again, we selected 120 hertz. So we got the full available range of frequencies this plugin offers for the low pass filter. And now I can generate the volume increase or decrease, the boosting or the cutting of that entire frequency range, essentially. If you wanted a low end boost of all of these frequencies, this would be the knob to do just that. Now, the direct knob is essentially a volume control for the direct signal. Turn that down, and the less of the direct signal you get and more of the synthesized low frequency signal you get. Look at it more like a wet dry knob. Underneath now you see here is the align button. And what this does is it phase aligns the unprocessed signal and the processed signal. So if there's any phasing anomalies that occur from the synthesized subharmonic frequency, this will ensure that they kind of lock together in phase to give you the best result. But it's not active when the dry signal is fully turned up. And according to the manual, once you start to lower the direct signal, this align button here is crucial for maintaining phase coherency. Now, the output knob is the most important knob on the whole plugin. I'm just kidding. So it's an output control, essentially, but it gain stages the output, compensating for any gain that was applied from the processing within this plugin. So you can dial back the plugin if you're feeding it into another plugin afterwards. You won't hit it as hard, and you can ensure that proper gain staging. And check this out, you also get a saturated sound when you push the low air and the low knob. So this output here enables you to get some grit and then dial back on the gain increase from those boosts. So let's go ahead and dive into some of these examples here and show you exactly what this plugin can do and why I think it's still relevant for today's mixing world. So what we have here is a bass track, we have a drum loop, we have an 808, a sample with a bass line built in, and then we have some inactive tracks here, which I'll explain what's going on with those after. So first, let's start with the bass and what it sounds like before we have low air put on. So I have the range here set at 120, meaning that at 120, it's going to create a subharmonic of 120, which would be 60 an octave below. By default, low air, which is that subharmonic frequency that was generated at 60 hertz, is boosted by 3. When you see we have a considerable amount of range to boost that up. And according to Waves, the more we pump this knob up, the more saturation we're going to get, some more grit in that low end as well. We can also cut it back and get rid of some of that. So it's all a balancing thing from this point on here. And we have the low knob, which is now just bringing up everything from 20 to 120. And that's just going to give us more bass. And the direct knob is all the way up. So we're not balancing and reducing the direct signal. We're getting all of that direct signal. We're getting the synthesized frequency at 60 hertz with a little bit of just overall 20 to 120 hertz bump. And that's it. Pretty much we got exactly what we were looking for with this sample. It was lacking sub energy, and low air did exactly what I was hoping it would do with minimal. I mean, right out the gate by default, it just added that energy that I was looking for. And now it's something that I can use in my mix. So that sounded awesome. Now, what I did here with the bass duplicated, I duplicated this track. And the reason I did this here would be to have more control. So the approach here is to add an EQ and roll off all of that low end. So I'm getting that direct signal, and I'm only going to be getting the bass from this one here with low air on it. But what I'm going to do is completely reduce the direct signal, and all I'm getting is the low end that was generated, and everything from 20 to 120. So let's listen to what that sounds like first. Definitely need some headphones to hear that. But now in combination with this, so there's like no low end. I'm cutting even some of that low mid energy out as well. The fundamentals of this bass is also reduced. So all we're getting here is mid range essentially. But now in combination with the bass, and the reason you can try this method is because now you can treat the sample differently. So if you wanted to like bring out some mid-range, you can do whatever you want. You can compress it, you can add saturation, you can lower it, raise it. Now you have a lot more control just by, getting the bass that was generated from low air, the filter, and only using low air as a way to completely get rid of the direct signal and just pull the bass out of, a sample or out of the bass line and give us a lot more control doing it that way. So either way is going to give you a great result, as you heard. This is just kind of like, I don't know, just trying as many things as possible to give us as much flexibility as possible. So the next thing here is the drum loop. So let's give it a listen here and see what it sounds like before the low air and then after. So it adds some thump to the kick drum. This drum loop here in particular sounds like there was, it might have used a couple different kicks, or it might have played with the pitches of certain spots where the kick was hitting. So you're hearing some of that sub energy hitting only on certain kicks more than others, but it still adds a nice little thump. So it might be something to employ if you don't have the bass line playing at the same time the drum loop was playing. But usually that like 60 hertz thump that we were getting out of the kick is going to end up clashing with any kind of sub heavy bass. So keep that in mind, but it is a way to add a little bit of, thump and sub to a drum loop that just generally wouldn't have that in it. So next up here we have is the 808. Let's listen to it before low air and after. So it definitely added a noticeable increase in sub energy. But one thing that I did not like about it, and I had this experience when I was trying to find a lot of 808 samples that had like a lot of low mid energy, were heavily distorted, and were lacking that kind of like sub energy. I was trying to find samples like that, and all of them had this effect, which it kind of sounds like a sample when it gets time stretched and slowed down. What happens to the frequencies? They just sound slower and choppy. So I'm going to show it to you with the direct signal completely diminished, and all we're hearing is the low end. And listen to what happens. Now this is the 808 before. So you see how it's not smooth. It does something to where that generated synthesized frequency is now kind of sounding choppy and slowed down almost. And for me, it might work in a mix if you're looking for, some low end, but I might reach for a different tool to get a little bit of sub energy out of an 808 like this, because it's not completely non-existent. It's there. So maybe like a Voice of God plugin might do the job. You might not need to generate low end with this particular sample. But again, like I said, any 808 that I was trying to find that really didn't have a lot of sub character or sub energy to it, this was the effect. And I was like, yeah, this might not work for this style of bass. But yeah, this has been my experience. And lastly here, we have a sample with a bass line in it. And I think this is where this plugin is going to win again, much like the bass line that we showed first here. So here's the sample without LoAir. Major difference, a lot of sub energy here generated from the LoAir. And again, this is all on the default setting, 120 hertz. So we're generating a 60 hertz frequency, LoAir, a little bit of bump, low, a little bit of bump, fully direct signal. And, it just sounds really, really good, a lot bigger. But for something like this, I would do exactly what I did with the bass example here is I would duplicate the track, and I would put an EQ on, and I would roll off everything up to about the point that the LoAir filter is kicking in. But I also found that when I did that at 120, it was clashing, I think, a little bit with some of the frequencies that were rolling off from LoAir. So I just decided to kind of get rid of everything up to 200. And I still liked the results. So let's play it here without the sample low cut, and then I'll bring that in. And we got to make sure that LoAir here on the sample is completely, the direct signal is completely brought down. So all we're getting here is the low end filter generated from LoAir. So there you have it, the Waves LoAir coming through in the clutch, doing what it does really well. A simple and easy solution to generate low end to help bring thin and bassless elements to life. And let me add that I would never use LoAir to add more bass to an element that has sufficient low end in it, just to bring out more rumble. Rumble to me is a nightmare for headroom, and a big reason why your mix might sound muddy. If I needed more low end for elements that already had enough sub energy in it, that's what an EQ is for, and the fader for volume, and even like the Little Labs Voice of God, which is just a bass resonance tool, not bass synthesis. So it's just boosting the corner frequency of a high pass filter, but really well. If I needed my low end to be heard on smaller speakers, I'd either saturate it or add some parallel distortion for some, mid-range grit, and maybe an R bass to synthesize the upper harmonics, giving me the perception that there's a fundamental frequency present on a system that doesn't reproduce it. So yeah, Waves LoAir for the win, for the, some weight on the right elements that need it. So if you want to get this plugin, click on the link in my description. If you feel like I'm bringing you value to your mixing journey, then that link helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. So I'd greatly appreciate the support. Also, if you're looking for some beats to elevate your projects, check out my beat store, daxhammer.com. Link is in the description as well. I have a wide range of hip-hop beats available, from exclusives to leases, and I'm sure that you're going to find something there that fits your style. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like, comment your experiences with this plugin, if you use it, if you're going to use it, or any other suggestions that, might work for you as an alternative, and subscribe for more producing and mixing tips and strategies. So yeah, until the next video, may God bless you. Peace.